All right, welcome everyone to our TNC meeting. I'm Tracy Smith, your facilitator, and I will start with introductions. Owen, if you would introduce yourself.
Hi, folks. Owen Christofferson, he, him pronouns, a longtime Uber and Lyft driver and chair of the committee.
All right, I see there is a phone number ending in 7246.
That's me, Chris Maher, part of the CAT team.
Hi, Chris. Camarina.
Hi everyone, I'm Camarina Galvan. I am the note taker and I support Tracy.
Chad.
Hi folks, I'm Chad Darrington, part-time Lyft and Uber driver and committee vice chair.
Mark.
Mark Williams, Bureau of Transportation, and I also support Tracy.
Thanks. Keenan. Oh, Keenan, you're on mute. Keenan, you're on mute.
It is, you can't hear you.
Sorry about that. Hey, Keenan Bro, he, him, longtime Uber driver and committee member.
Welcome. Anna Deanna.
I'm Anna Deanna Johnson, she, her pronouns, and member of this committee as well as the Committee on Accessible Transportation.
Richard. You're on mute as well.
Okay, now Richard Rorick, longtime Uber and Lyft driver and member of this committee. See you all. I couldn't be here last time.
All right, Clayton, welcome.
Thank you, Tracy. Hi, everybody. Clayton Harris. I am actually the outgoing government relations director for Lyft. I hope to introduce you all, or definitely at the next opportunity, Nicholas Johnson, who's our permanent West Coast director. Is a really good guy. So I'm sitting in today to answer some of the questions that y'all have for us, and then we'll transition out.
All right, Sally.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sally LaJoy. I use she, her pronouns, and I am part of the Ombuds team that works with the drivers and companies in the city.
Anna.
Hi, I'm sorry for the disruption. My daughter was walking home from school. I'm Anna Richter Taylor, and I'm representing Uber on this committee and use she, her pronouns. Thanks.
Steve.
Yeah, hello, Steve Kester from the Port of Portland. I manage all the parking and shuttle buses out here at the airport.
Erica.
Hi guys, I'm Erica. I am a longtime driver myself, over 5 years. I am a member of Rideshare Drivers United in California. I was elected to the board of directors in 2020. I have been following this body for about 2 years now via public record and am very impressed by some of the work that's been done here. And I've been driving in Oregon now since we moved here about a year ago. So nice to see all of you. I've been admiring from afar and it's good to be here.
Welcome. Darren Campbell.
Hey, Darren Campbell. I'm the chair of the Private Hire Transportation Advisory Committee, as well as the subcommittee on fees and fares. And I would support Tracy if the city of Portland paid me enough.
Thank you, Darren. April. April, we see you're talking, but we can't hear you. Nope. This is April, and she is with the Port of Portland. And so April, hopefully you can get your sound squared away, but welcome. And Elizabeth. Elizabeth Gallagher.
She might be having problems compliance.
Okay. Elizabeth, if you can't come off of mute, if you could type the organization you're representing, that would be great. Oh, there she is. On behalf of LIFT, well, welcome, Elizabeth. All right, did I miss anyone? Okay, Owen, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, welcome everyone. It's great to see you all here. Looks like next on our agenda is announcements from committee members, and I'll hand it over to Mark.
Owen, so this is just not the PBOT update. If any committee members have any general updates they would like to share?
Apologies. Yes, certainly. All right. Looks like let's move on to.
Sorry, can I ask a question? Is this where, I'm sorry to interrupt. Is this where I should give updates on my follow-up from the last, like my assignments, or?
We can do that later on.
Later.
Item
Okay.
number 4, general updates from technical advisory comments. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
And Anna, there's also a section where Camarina will review action items. And if you have updates related to action items, you can share it then.
And yeah, that looks like we are on that topic. That's topic number 3, approval of the August 8th, 2022 meeting summary that was emailed out a while back. Does anybody have any changes or edits to the meeting summary? All right, in that case, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the August 8th, 2022 meeting summary. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right.
Owen, just a course of items. Now we're going to go into review the action items, correct?
Correct. Yeah, just after we get this approved. So could I have a show of hands to approve the August 8th, 2022 meeting summary? All right. Does anybody show of hands to not approve the August 8th, 2022 meeting summary? All right. And the motion passes and the meeting summary is approved. So now we can move on to the second part of this topic, which is reviewing the action items. Camarina, would you like to take it from here?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Owen. I'm going to share my screen. Just look a little small. All right. So action item 18 from the last meeting was Mark Williams will follow up with the Office of Community and Civic Life as they were working on advisory committee compensation. Mark completed the task and responded that not at this time, but it is not off the table and can be revisited in the future. Mark, would you like to add anything here?
Nothing in particularly. I can tell you that the Office of Community and Civic Life has not established a formal policy. The Office of Community and Civic Life actually holds and has established a policy as to how all of the advisory committees in the city of Portland operate. But this particular topic or subject, although it has come up, they have not established a formal policy for it. They have, however, said that, hey, if bureaus want to go out there and do this, then they can certainly do it. There's no laws against it, if you will. But at this point in time, because PBOT has so many committees, they want to establish an internal policy before they just grant this type of compensation to just one. So I don't know when that's going to happen, but I will certainly keep this committee posted.
Great, thank you. Action item 19. Anna and Owen will connect to discuss presenting upfront the per minute and per mile to the driver. So this is pending. Owen and Anna kept missing each other, but they will be connecting. Action item 20. Anna will connect with Phil to discuss the location of the pins at the Port of Portland. This is pending. And I will be connecting with Phil because the information she took to Uber didn't make sense for the operation. So they need to keep discussing this. Anna, would you like to add anything else to these 2 action items before I move on?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, great. Action item 21. Owen will connect with all committee members to ask if they have any questions and communicate those questions to Clayton. So completed, Owen will be taking questions from committee members by email and passing those along to Clayton. Do you want to add anything here, Owen?
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and put my email into the chat right now, and I invite committee members to email me with those questions, and I can go ahead and pass them along. My question to Clayton Harris is, because your role is outgoing, would it be better to connect with a different person at this point?
Hey, Owen, it will be, and I'll give you the correct email. I think the constant that we have certainly is Amy Ruiz, but I'll make sure that also you have Nick Johnson's email.
Great.
Action item 22, Mark will discuss a topic submission form notification process with Owen and Chad. This has been completed. Those who submit a form will now receive an email notification indicating if the topic will be considered. Action item 23, April will ask the individuals managing the roadway if a sign can be posted, and will check if there is a date schedule for reopening the roadway. So this was completed. April reported the roadway has been opened. However, it continues to be the non-preferred route for TNC drivers. Action item 24, PBOT will work with Uber and Lyft on language encouraging the TNC drivers to sign up for PBOT alerts. Mark, do you have any updates on this action item?
No updates. Both Uber and Lyft have the capability of doing this. We just need to determine what the messaging is going to be like. We have some internal language that we can use. I don't know if anybody in this room uses the PBOT alert system, but there are probably about 3 or 4 dozen list groups, if you will, that you can sign up for. So it's we got to really craft some language that really directs them to that specific updates around about the committee and the traffic concerns that I believe came up in a previous meeting with Phil. So we'll continue to work on that and get that done.
Great, thank you. Action item 25, PBOT will send a message to TNC drivers encouraging them to sign up for the alerts.
That's pretty much the same thing.
Yes, thank you. Action item 26, and I will find out more about rider profile requirements and will report back to the committee. This is completed, and I had a conversation with Chad to understand the safety issues and concerns. It is an ongoing discussion with the company to find ways to work together on these concerns. Anna or Chad, would you like to add to this?
Not specifically. I know that there's some more questions. Anna, I don't want to speak and I didn't take great notes. When we had talked, there were some questions more about Uber's naming and picture for passengers that they wanted to get back with you on, I think. And we're still in discussion about that, right?
Yes, I mean, so in brief, the photo issue has more challenges because of concerns and around discrimination, and that either has been experienced in the past or anyway. So that is one issue, is that to avoid that and prevent any discrimination based on a photo. However, I am still trying to understand the mechanics of potentially, how the name on the account aligns with the card on file, and if there's some additional requirements that could help resolve that issue. And then other issues we talked about was more training around safety and kind of best practices, and trying to enhance some of that with drivers. So, tips on dash cams and other safety tools that drivers can have, and trying to utilize the TNC's platforms to help drivers more on that front. And then we talked a bit about the front seat versus like the prohibition of allowing some people, or the option for a driver to not allow someone to sit in the front seat. And so that's still an ongoing conversation.
Great,
Thank
Thank you. Action item 27, Clayton will follow up with Lyft safety team about rider profile requirements and will report back to the committee. This was completed, Clayton. You have some updates to share?
I do, and thank you all for letting Anna go first. Basically, what she's talking about with the updates on driver and profile verification, as well as the front seat, my responses would be just about identical on what's going on and how we're doing it and trying to ensure driver safety and comfort level as well as moving forward while they operate on the platform. Specifically, I was also asked to follow up about providing rides for others. I believe that conversation had come up and I wasn't as well versed on the right for other protocol that we have. And the way, so that I can let you all know, is that we do have a part in the app where you can request a ride for another rider at a different location, but that rider has to have profile set up in the app as well, so that the driver can see who is going to get into the vehicle with them. I know that, or I'm anticipating a further question would be what happens when a ride is requested and is not followed by those directions or whatnot. So I know that drivers have the opportunity to decline a ride or whatnot, and I'm just trying to make sure that we're providing an response that's available and appropriate. I think one of the bigger questions that came up, and just so everyone knows, that rides for minors, unaccompanied minors are not allowed to ride in there. But what happens if a driver gets a call for an unaccompanied minor and this minor is there, and do they leave them at the park by themselves or whatnot? And it really puts the driver in a conundrum right there. And we're just trying to work through all of these issues and making sure, honestly, that riders understand what our policies are and what they're allowed to do and not allowed to do. I understand that me saying that, is one thing, and then it happening in practice is another thing. So just trying to work on the best possible solution to ensure that drivers know who's in their vehicle and they have a comfort level on picking up someone or declining a ride, depending on what the case may be. So it is ongoing, but I do want you to know that I followed up with our safety team, and it's ongoing conversations that we're having as well.
Thank you very much.
Camarina, I wanted to bring to your attention, oh, Clayton, did you see the comment in chat?
Yes, ma'am, and I apologize for that. I didn't know that was on my assignment, but I can tell you right now, because we've had this issue with service animals, it's extremely important. A driver is not allowed to refuse a ride for a rider with a service animal. That is the policy, and definitely Lyft sticks and adheres to it strictly. And if there is any problem, the rider should be able to go inside the application and report it, and hopefully a ride will be dispatched as soon as possible. And if the driver's report it, then it'll go through that process as well.
Chad.
Yes, I just wanted to get, for the committee members who may not know, I went down a little rabbit hole on how you get a ride for another person. In Lyft, it's really straightforward. You just need their name, first name, last name, and their cell phone number. Uber's a little bit more complicated because the person has to have an Uber account, and you can set them up right at that time, but there's a little bit more hoops on the ordering a ride for somebody else. Doing it for Lyft, they do make it pretty easy. First name, last name, and a valid email ad or valid phone number, which I think makes sense so that they can text back and forth with the driver through the Uber or the Lyft app. And then, yeah, I was going to tell Anna Deanna that, yes, I've seen that. And I know that Lyft I had to take it twice over the pandemic training on, boy, you got to pick up service animals no matter what. I know they make it easier for us, at least in Uber, to not take non-service animals. It's a checkbox to not take pets, but service animals in both apps should be required. And I would hope that driver got in trouble for that. That was it.
Okay, there is someone 131 on the phone. Did you have a comment?
Yeah, my name's Jerry Crosby. I drive for Uber and Lyft. Yeah, I'm just listening. I'll wait till afterwards before I comment on an issue that I have.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, Owen, back to you.
All right, thank you very much, everyone. Really appreciate how methodical we're all being and getting through these many action items. Looks like number 4 on topic on our agenda list is general updates from technical advisory panel and public comments, as well as a fees and fares subcommittee update. So first, I'm going to go ahead and ask if there's anybody from our technical advisory panel that has any public comments. These are, things unrelated to other items on the agenda. All right. And then is there anybody from the general public here who would like to comment on items that are not later scheduled on the agenda? All right, sounds good. Let me hand it over to Mark for the fees and fares subcommittee update.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Not a whole lot to update. We continue to work through the TNC driver survey. This would be the second TNC driver survey that would be distributed. Some of you may recall we launched a driver survey right at the beginning of the pandemic. Timing was probably really bad for that. For most of the drivers were not working at that time, so the response was limited. There's also been some additional discussions, nothing conclusive yet. But there have been some discussions around upfront fares. I believe this is something that I want to say, is it Uber? If I'm wrong, please forgive me, but I think Uber does this in other markets. And so there's been some discussions about if that model is going to come to Portland or not, and what does that mean for the drivers. And in addition to that, and I think we've kind of talked a little bit about this, and this is the third-party rides, and I think we resolved some of those questions here today. So that's really about it, unless any of my fellow fees and fair subcommittee members have anything to add. I think that's about it.
Yeah, that I think covers it, Mark.
All right, sounds good. And Mark, it looks like you are next for number 5, PBOT program updates.
Okay, so first and foremost, I want to mention to all of the committee members, and this really applies to all of the regulatory committees. So that's private for hire, TNC drivers, and the towing administration advisory committee, which is our newest committee. But you all should have received an invite to take the mandatory committee training. If you have not received that invite by now, please send me an email. Let's find out what went wrong, and we'll get that invite out to you. It's something that it's got to be completed by every committee member. There's a couple of videos in there, some basic questions, and it's good information. Probably not the most entertaining videos, but very informative to say the least. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the driver training and our LMS update. So our LMS is the new learning management system. The driver training is some of the etiquette training that we've been working on, driver etiquette training. And Diana, this would hopefully help address some of those concerns about drivers not accepting service animals. So the driver etiquette training the idea was established to kind of help drivers, try to avoid some of the conversations that get them in trouble in the vehicle. Okay, we know that religious topics and politics is probably not the greatest conversation to have with customers. So we want to offer drivers some tools and some best practices to avoid those kind of conversations so that both the rider and the driver have a wonderful experience during that ride, but also to provide additional training to drivers about working with service animals and people with disabilities. We have videos that we've already produced. We're working on producing some additional videos, but we're still working through some of the challenges with our new learning management system. So I want to talk a little bit about that. When you attend the required committee training, you will be on that platform. So in a lot of ways, all of you will be helping us beta test that platform. Some of you were involved in the Vision Zero beta testing on that platform as well. We've made a lot of changes, configuration changes to the system with all the feedback that we've received, but we still have some more work to do. When that system is up and running, the existing private for hire required training that the city provides will move over to this new system. The nice thing about this system is that you can start the training, you can stop, come back and pick up where you left off. If you forget about the training, this system is going to be smart enough to remind you, hey, you've got a course to complete here. And it's going to look and feel like an online course if you've ever taken an online course with one of the educational institutions around. So still working on it. It hasn't, it's not moving along as quickly as we'd like to see it moving. Part of this is COVID and people with staffing shortages, but nevertheless, it's still moving forward. And I'd be more than happy to take any questions regarding any of the training.
Deanna, I see your hand is raised.
Yes, now is it because of the training that a PBOT user account was created for me?
That's correct.
Okay, because nothing to explain it was with it. It was simply, here's your PBOT login.
Anna Deanna, you should have received an email from me before that arrived. Did you not get that email?
I had received an email that said something about training, but yes. I didn't read it completely. I was busy with other, sorry, the STFAC has been in budget meetings.
Yeah. Well, that email explains everything, but if you have any questions, just reply to that email. I'll be more than happy to answer them for you.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm. And and also the last thing, did you note my in the comments I posted something about the Roberts rules for me?
Yes, I did.
And that was because Owen posed a motion. And according to the Roberts rules, you're not supposed to. But I went and looked it up just to make sure.
Yeah, appreciate that.
All right, Owen, we'll move on to the next item, and that is the topic submission, driver protections. Chad?
Get off mute here. All right, so we're up to dealing consideration. So to bring people who may not know driver protections and driver safety, we've kind of rolled into, we talked a little bit about it before with Anna Richter-Taylor. Thought processes on driver protections have included passengers having to have a valid picture with their account, passengers having to first name, last name match their billing card to help protect drivers, and having the front seat open. So basically going back to COVID rules for number of passengers, 3 for Lyft or UberX and 5 for the XLs. I think we have dropped the idea that drivers should be allowed to have self-defense things in the car to protect themselves from passengers. That's just too problematic to deal with. I would love to hear thoughts. I know that Anna and I have already talked about these, and we talked about them earlier in this meeting a little bit, but this is just the point of the outline where we get to talk about these, and we still consider moving forward with possibly writing a letter to the director to request you know, a change in the city code or to go to the, if it requires it to go to legal and then go before the city council to make any of these things a, I guess I'm missing the word for make it a law, not a law, but a requirement in the PBOT code for those things. And then we will open it up for discussions. If we can limit to 2 minutes per person, and please raise your hand for discussion about the driver protection issues.
And let's start with committee members, then we can open up to the general public.
Thank you.
Anna Diana?
Yeah, so are you talking about the drivers possibly carrying things such as mace or a pepper spray, that sort of thing?
I had thought about that and then relinquished that idea after doing some internet searching. Not, I wouldn't call it research, internet searching that shows that that's can be fairly problematic because some drivers will just get angry that the passenger wants them to play different music and spray them in the face with bear spray. That sort of craziness I read on the internet.
And so is there a list of possibly proposed implements that a driver could carry? Something I can look somewhere before this goes out to anybody else, you know?
No, we never got that far.
Again, I would like to remind everyone when a topic submission is up for consideration, it's really a discussion point. And based on a short amount of discussion, the committee can say yay or nay to moving that topic submission forward. Additional work may be required. In this case, additional work would be required to be more specific, but it's really about, do we want to take further action? And if you do, this is the time to give Chad some specifics around what he could include in this topic submission or not include. Mark,
Phil?
I see your hand is up, and Phil as well.
I was just for the committee's information, the city has never had a policy in place regarding what items a driver can carry for their own personal protection. As most of you know, the taxi industry does have a requirement for a security camera in the vehicle, and that camera requirement is there for one reason and one reason only, and that's because taxis can accept hails. Okay, so when a stranger just sees a taxi driving by and waves them down, the camera is in there to capture a digital record of that interaction of that transaction. That transaction record for TNCs and every other industry is collected electronically in reservation records or payment records or what have you. That applies to non-emergency medical transportation. There's a record. If you rent a limousine or a town car, there's that reservation record. But taxis are required to carry or to have these security cameras specifically because they can accept street hails. I just want to share that bit of background to the committee.
Bill?
Okay, first of all, Chad's proposal was mostly, correct me if I'm wrong, it's mostly about providing photographs and names that match. And he was admitting that we're really not going forward with carrying self-defense weapons. So it's kind of disappointing that already all of the conversation has been about what we're not really considering. So if we're trying to stay on track here, speaking as a driver, what he is actually proposing, I think, is very important. Drivers are required to have their photos there so that riders know that, who they're getting. And I think for safety reasons, drivers need to be able to see photographs of who's getting in their car. Now, not only does that pertain to the person who's requesting the ride, it should also pertain to third-party rides as well. I drive for both TNCs. One of them currently gives information that it is a third-party ride. The other one does not. So first of all, I'd like to see it be required for both companies to let the driver know that the person who's getting in the car is not necessarily the person who requested it. And I would also like to see a photo of the third party that's getting in. Now, I know this can be done because with at least one of the TNCs, periodically I'm required to actually take an updated photo of myself before I can continually drive. So I don't see why there's any reason why the person requesting the ride shouldn't be able to upload a current photo, and why they shouldn't be able to do that for a third party person that's going to be getting in my car. I've done over 15,000 rides for the two companies combined, and there are plenty of times when a person is calling a ride for a third party person, and that third party person is scarily dangerous. And I don't want to let them in. And on only one of the TNCs can I immediately cancel a ride for a reason. The other TNC makes me wait up to 5 minutes at the pickup point to cancel the ride. So in a nutshell, I'm supporting what Chad is recommending here, plus adding a couple of things that perhaps should be considered.
Keenan? You're on mute.
Spacebar is not working for me. So notwithstanding the no path toward implements or whatever, no kind of safety tools, I interpreted this as just as much of a COVID safety measure of not having people breathing more immediately in your space. Would that be wrong, or?
Yeah, I didn't get sick. I drove pretty much the whole pandemic and I never got sick because nobody sat in the front seat, and I bought one of those Lyft sneeze guards for the back.
Yeah.
And I didn't get sick. I got sick after the pandemic was over. I got sick in 2022. My wife got sick a month ago. So now that the protections are lessened, now people are getting sick. So that is one of the reasons for the keeping the front seat clear.
Yeah.
And you would not believe it, as a 6'4" overweight guy, that somebody has grabbed my thigh inappropriately while giving a ride. But it happens. And you don't want to see how angry I would be if that was my daughter driving.
Yeah. Yeah. And just on the strength of that alone, I think it's worth moving it to consideration.
I do have one other question or policy check if there's no other committee members who have comments.
Oh,
I was just going to make a quick comment. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think I agree with everything that's been said. I see this both as a general safety measure and as a pandemic safety measure. And I think, I mean, I don't know, Chad, if you had envisioned, kind of letting the drivers choose or kind of having a system where just going back to the old rules. But I think given both the state of the pandemic that we're in, as well as the unfortunate kind of rise in very serious safety incidents that we've been seeing not only in other places, but Portland as well, I think that these measures are reasonable and would absolutely increase the safety of drivers in the Portland area.
Thank you. My check was just, I like Phil's idea of bringing up marking third-party rides as third-party rides, but does that, if we vote on this and decide to write up something to give to the commissioner as we'd like to see this happen, can I include that in the big one, or do we have to discuss that more? Can we just move forward with a change?
Chad, this would typically, oh, Mark, were you going to answer? Go ahead, Mark.
I didn't know if he was asking me the question or someone else. Were you asking me, Chad, or?
Well, I guess I am asking you because it's for Peabody, but so
yeah. For the requirement to have the third-party ride information in the app, is that specifically what you're talking about?
Well, just adding that to, so we've kind of got three things to ask for.
Right.
We're asking for a requirement for better identification of the rider, picture and name. We're asking for the front seat to be empty. And now I would like to add to that, asking for third-party rides to be flagged as third-party rides so the driver sees right at the beginning, hey, this is a third-party ride. So they can make that decision if they want to take that or not. They may be penalized for they may not make their streak bonus, but at least they have the opportunity to say, no, I don't want to do a third-party ride. Can I combine those all into one, since we've never talked about third-party rides until today?
Sure. I don't see a policy or process issue with that, as long as that we come back with very clear language, exactly what we're proposing in an administrative rule or city code, and we take public comment, meaning everyone gets an opportunity to comment about this policy recommendation. But if we have more discussion after that date comes at the next meeting perhaps, and it doesn't sound like we're all in the same place, I would probably suggest that we carry it over for one more additional meeting and come back with responses to some of the questions that may come up.
Phil?
I didn't get to comment about the second part of your recommendation about the front seat being left empty. I'd like to lend my support to that, along with Owen's comment about perhaps making it an option to the driver that he can opt out of 4 passenger rides and choose 3 if they want. I think if you make it sweeping, you're going to be reducing the number of rides in a standard size car. That would force some passengers to go from, for example, UberX to XL. And I think some of the drivers might resent losing those rides. But I know that there are other drivers like myself who have a strong preference for leaving that front seat open, not only for COVID reasons, but also there are some severe safety issues by having someone sitting in the front seat. In my case, they would have access to my touchscreen, which really, controls all my dashboard and operating of the car. So I'm very, very uncomfortable having anybody sit next to me in the front seat.
Okay, so I'll just summarize. So the next step is for the committee to vote on whether or not to move this forward to an action item where Chad will revise the topic submission to include the 3 areas of ID photo, the option, or at least this conversation around whether or not the front seat should be empty, and then third-party rides to be flagged. And as Mark stated, and Mark, you have your hand up, I'll come back to you when I'm done. If it is voted on for the next meeting, they would take public comment on this as well. So Mark, additional comments you have?
Yeah, and just to clarify, I think these are 3 separate topics. It feels like 3 separate topics. The one relating to the maximum seating, I may want to consult with our city attorney about that, because this may need to also go through the other committee because it impacts drivers in the other industries as well. I don't see how we could implement a policy that potentially only affects TNC drivers and not taxi drivers and non-emergency medical transportation that may also have passengers that travel in the front seat.
All right, so again, we would be looking at these 3 areas as 3 separate topic submissions. All right, Owen, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, I just see that Chad has left I just wanna, it looks like he's still away. What time is it? 4:16. I'd like to call for a motion, but I just want to make sure that Chad is there to vote on it. Let's see.
We
can't,
couldn't call the vote and roll his vote into it later, would we?
Well, I think even if Chad's off the call momentarily, Owen, you still meet quorum.
Okay. In that case, and thank you for the procedural clarification, Anna Diana, I would like to call for a motion. If someone would like to make a motion on moving forward with, we've got passenger limits, names and ID photos, and third-party rides.
Motion to move forward.
Second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Right. There you are, Chad. So we've made the motion and we're just voting on it now. So all those in favor.
Wait, Owen, Owen, before we take a vote, there's Anna Diana, you have a question?
Yeah, these are going to be going forward as 3 separate action items. Yes?
Correct.
That's what we had just previously discussed, but I wanted to clarify that since you put it together into one request for a vote, I wanted to make sure that they're going to come out as 3 separate action items when they do move forward.
They will be 3 separate topic submissions and reworded and further defined.
Should we be taking votes on each 3 of these individually?
I don't think that's necessary, Owen. It's really just to move it forward.
All right. In that case, let's get back to the votes. Everybody all in favor of moving these 3 issues forward, please raise your hand. All right. All against, please raise your hand. All right, the motion passes. So Chad will work to put together some language, and we will be discussing this at our next meeting. Thank you very much, Chad, and everybody for these, I think, really important driver protection topics. And it looks like we are moving forward with our number 7. This is going to be a discussion both on broader aspects of TNC driver compensation, as well as a specific item around limiting the proportion of fares that the TNCs are allowed to take. So I'm going to just give a little introduction, some background and history, and then I will hand it over to Chad to talk about the fare proportion issue, and then we will open up the floor for comments and further discussion. All right, yeah, so we have talked about fares almost every meeting. It has I think compensation was one of the major issues involved in the creation of this committee in the first place. I started driving in 2015, so I was actually driving with the original rates, which were $1.55 a mile and 30 cents per minute. The split was 20% to the TNCs, 80% to the drivers. The thing that got me personally motivated to be more involved in this issue was this fare cut. It happened in January 2016, which for those familiar with Portland will know is always a slow time after the holiday season, and it really, really hurt. And I remember starting to get involved with other people doing political organizing around this issue and just hearing story after story from, drivers who were in, you know, more vulnerable positions than myself. And I think as we move forward with our discussion, that is one thing that I would really like folks to remember, is that there are, you know, many of us come to driving TNCs from different backgrounds and for different reasons. Some of us are, you know, very part-time, and it goes all the way to the other end of the spectrum where folks are doing this, and this is their livelihoods. This is how they make their living and how they support their families. When considering parameters, details about compensation, I think that obviously, you know, driving cost reimbursement is one of the main issues with this. You know, what does that look like? But, you know, there are also a number of other things. I'll say, you know, my understanding is statutorily and just kind of jurisdiction wise, we as a committee do not really have a lot of purview over the employee versus independent contractor classification. But I do think that, you know, notwithstanding, you know, kind of going one way or the other, issues in that regard do deserve to be brought up. So this is, in addition to driving cost reimbursement, this is Social Security and Medicare. This is unemployment insurance. This is workers' compensation. This is paid rest time. This is paid sick time. And this is healthcare. These are also parts of this broader conversation that I feel need to be brought in, especially as we strive to look at this issue from an equity standpoint, knowing that people of color, people from immigrant communities are disproportionately likelier to be driving TNCs and to be driving full time. So with that, I will hand it over to Chad to talk about this proposal that came out of the Fees and Fares Subcommittee around limiting the proportion of the fare that TNCs can take.
Thank you, Owen. So yes, in the Fees and Fares Subcommittee, which is talking about the fares that drivers are making, it has been our every single meeting conversation on comments or examples of drivers getting the short end of the stick from TNC companies. And thought process was, let's just go back. You can't go back to the beginning when the TNCs were not here and we're all driving cabs, but you can go back to the fare percentage has changed, and both of the TNC companies are hiding that from the drivers. Uber was the last one, the holdout, where you could see what a passenger paid after the ride was over at the end of the night or whatever, you could see. Lyft used to let you see that until about a year and a half ago, and now they're hiding it. And then Uber just started in the last 3 or 4 months. Upfront fares are coming, and there I have an example on my screen right now that's in a different state, but upfront fares are here in Portland for some drivers. In other places, an upfront UberX share ride of a 25-minute to get to a destination of 13 miles, to drive 5 minutes and 1.1 miles without the boost was a 97-cent fare to the driver. It did include a $4 boost. So these things that Uber and Lyft are coming up with as a company to make their shareholders happy is at the cost of the drivers. So they're inflating the prices that they're charging to the riders. Phil will tell you, I have seen it. Everybody on here has seen the passengers got in and goes, well, you're not getting it. I got to pay $75 to go from the airport to Gateway Transit Center. And how do we tell them that we're not getting that? We're getting mileage and minutes, and that what Uber and Lyft charge them is not. So the plan was, look, let's not overcomplicate it. Let's say, put in a request for the PBOT to make it for TNCs to do business in Portland. They give 75% of the ride to the driver. They can charge the passenger out the nose, and we'll deal with that if they, which I don't think is right, but they give 75% to the driver. Along with that should be, it's not in there, but for my part of the discussion would be, we have to go back to the drivers knowing what the passengers paid for the rides. You know, Samsung knows how much Apple is charging somebody for an iPhone that has a Samsung screen in it. I do not know how much Uber charged Steve Smith for me to give him a ride. And we should know that. We should get a better percentage of the fare, because they're not going to ever come back to that $1.20 a mile, $1.30 a mile. It's down at 70 cents a mile for UberX and Lyft, and less than 24 cents a minute. And those are, they're just not doable. Long rides, which had been the backbone of you could make money, you can't anymore with gas at $6, climbing up on $6 a gallon. You can't do a long fare. It doesn't make the drivers money to live off of. And if you look at the periods that they do the rides in, period 1 is when you turn on the app, but you don't have a fare ping or anything. And then period 2 is the time that you accept a ride, but you don't have a passenger in your car. And then period 3 is that time that you actually have a passenger in your car. Those 3 periods add up to drivers making less than minimum wage, in my opinion. We don't have concrete steps on it because we're not making enough money to hire somebody to find out. But in Seattle, it was proven that they were not making minimum wage. So Seattle came up with a minimum fare compensation. Portland needs to come up with a minimum fare compensation and be the leader in this and be 75%. I will get off my soapbox now and open discussion for committee members to be followed by members of the public. Thank you.
Thanks, Chad.
Do we have any comments from committee members?
I have a question. And so I'm not familiar with how your pay compensation works. I'm new to this whole experience. And so you're saying that these companies do not provide for your Social Security or anything for compensation for your time or anything additional. The only thing they're providing is them managing the software and money. Is that true?
Yes.
I think it's wrong what they're doing then. Okay.
Erica has a heart up.
She also has several comments in the comment thing in the chat.
Yeah, I think that Chad and the other gentleman, Owen, are absolutely right. These are absolutely things that we've been fighting for in California. We've been doing our own studies. I would cite Ken Jacobs of UC Berkeley, who did a national study on this issue and found that drivers do make less than minimum wage. I mean, it tells you something when you can write off 58.5 cents per mile, 59 cents per mile to the IRS, and drivers are making less than that per mile. What that tells you is that the companies are robbing not only the drivers, but the IRS. I mean, we're forced to write off more than we make, right? Just based on the facts. So what we do in this business is we take out a loan against the equity of our vehicles for cash flow. And this is well known among drivers, particularly those of us who've been doing it since the 80-20 split. And we know that at that time it was equitable and it made sense. And we were able to take off some of those holidays that are super busy and spend, you know, the 4th of July with our families to celebrate freedom. But I'm finding more and more every year that that I'm working a lot more of those holidays because I don't have any of those employee benefits. So I'm really happy to be here today, and I agree. This has been my life's work for the last 5 years in California, and so I'm happy that their drivers have a voice here. I really hope that they'll be heard. I can tell you the conditions are better here in California thanks to what you guys have been doing. And I hope to continue to be a part of that.
Erica, I thank you for your comments, and I just want to remind Owen and Chad that at this time we were only having, based on the procedure, the process, that committee members were only taking comment from committee members, and if the committee decides to move this forward, we would take public comment at the meeting in which it's voted on. So Erica, I don't want to devalue your comment, but I'm just doing a process check with the committee.
Bill, we'll get to you right after Keenan.
Let's see. Yes, unmuted. So we're just discussing like whether to move is there a particular part of this that we're looking to move forward with? An aspect of it, like, are we saying, yes, let's figure out how to put together a pay study, or just the literal 75% of the fare? That's what we're just going to go with.
My thought process after looking at it had been, we're not going to be able to get a pay study done. And to go straight to sending a letter to the director of PBOT or the city council saying, hey, can we get this as a requirement for TNCs in Portland?
Okay, gotcha.
And I'll just say really quickly, I think, yeah, I agree with what Chad said. You know, I think that obviously limiting the proportion of money that the TNCs can take isn't an end-all be-all solution to all of these issues, which I really appreciate, you know, everybody's input on. But I feel as if, you know, we need to do something. And if this is something that has come out of the Fees and Fares Subcommittee that we can do, that we can send forward, I feel, you know, I really feel the urgency of this. So that's my hope personally.
Thank you. Phil?
Boy, I'd really like to commend Owen and Chad. You presented our thoughts from that subcommittee extremely well and very eloquently. And I would urge all the other voting members of the committee to go forward with further discussion. Especially the most important is the percentage split, but Chad also mentioned the transparency, which was taken away a couple of years ago. I would urge the committee to include that in whatever recommendation goes forward, so that the driver can confirm the percentage that they're receiving. The other point that I didn't hear mentioned is that as rates have been rising, the per minute and per mile plus pickup base rates for rides have remained the same for at least the last couple of years, which is not only unfair, but it enables the TNC to offer incentives to drivers to drive during specific times when they would probably rather not work in order to make a livable wage. And that kind of manipulation would sort of go away again by going to a 75-25 split. So that's something that maybe can be worked into the wording as we go forward. But mostly, I really want to encourage all the voting members of this committee to support this.
Thank you. Any other comments from, Deanna?
Yeah, so I heard a couple of people say that other organizations have done studies. Did your subcommittee review some of those studies and have a list as a reference? so that when a statement from us is put together, we can cite other examples where those studies already have been done. I think it would help to expedite things.
Thank you. Yeah. We did look at Seattle did a study, and a couple of the universities around the country had done studies, and we looked at them. I got lost in them, but there's a lot to take in from those research studies. But looking at the summaries and the whatever that piece is, that where you break down what your study is all about at the very beginning of it, we had looked at those, and yes, thank you. We should cite those in our letter to Peabody and the city council, or the city council.
And I'll just jump in and say, I know that in the past, I believe we have included as meeting documents either a summary of the Seattle study or the full Seattle study. I will dig that up again. I found it fairly accessible language, fairly easy to read, and I think a really important basis for the work that we can do here.
And in the chat, Erica also suggested that we contact to get information of what was being done where she is in the same vein.
And so Chad, what I recommend too is with Erica to reach out to her and potentially invite her to a subcommittee meeting. You know, we looked at bylaws, you know, non-committee members can be on subcommittees or come and give input. They just can't vote. So Erica, if you would like to touch bases with Owen and Chad on when those meetings are held, they can give you the specifics of that.
That sounds great. I have my email in the chat. Thank you, Tracy.
Tracy, if it's all right, I'm going to forward the fees and fares subcommittee meeting invite to Erica for Thursday.
Sure.
Okay. Do we have a question from Richard or comment?
Yeah, well, I've just got a suggestion. I think the percentage specification is great, but I think it's crucial that transparency be included with that, because there's no way to audit that from a day-to-day basis. And I think that's extremely important.
That's a really good point. Yeah, I appreciate that.
Chad, if there's no additional comments, you can move to have a motion on whether or not to move this forward to an action item.
Thank you. Can I get a motion?
So Owen has to call for the motion as the chair.
Sorry, I'm muted. I'd like to go ahead and call for a motion for these. Now, I just want to clarify before actually I make the call, we have percentage limits and we have transparency. In other words, the limits on the percentage itself and bringing back the driver's ability to see the amount the passenger pays. Chad, is there anything else that we want to kind of add in terms of kind of this as a kind of a package?
I think that makes a perfect package. Transparency and minimum fare compensation is a nice tight bundle. I get nervous because we had brought up that 30-day rule and that it got chewed up and it got spit down to little. So I think if we keep everything tight, we can keep track of it better.